This is the Millennial Millionaire Through Real Estate podcast.
We bought the thing using someone else's money. We fixed it up using someone else's money. We rented it out, and then we ended up refinancing it. And that gentleman that lent me the money was a property manager / hard money lender of ours that we actually found on Bigger Pockets. He said, "Look, man, you're the one making all the money here. I don't want to lend you money. I don't want to manage your properties. I just want you to sell stuff to me. Would you consider selling, the next property you find to me if it's not something that you want to keep?"
You're listening to the Millennial Millionaire Through Real Estate podcast, where we discuss tangible tips, tricks, and best practices for becoming financially free. The show is designed for people who want to either start real estate investing or for those who want to scale their real estate business.
What's up, guys? This is Jonathan Farber, host of the Millennial Millionaire Through Real Estate podcast. This show is all about achieving financial freedom as fast as possible so you can do whatever makes you happy in life. For me, that vehicle was real estate, and it's how I achieved financial freedom at 27. If you want to know how I got started, my journey is presented in a YouTube video posted in the show notes, and I post daily in our private Facebook group about my favorite topics and day-to-day strategies. I appreciate you guys being here, and let's get started. Oh, by the way, reach out if you ever need help. I try to keep my calendar open to talk to anyone that needs it or has any quick questions. See you guys. Talk to you later. This episode is sponsored by Infinite Road Destinations, the smartest short-term rental property management group I know, and the group that manages my properties. This is a company that's very close to my heart, run by two of the smartest, most attentive people I know, Claire Rosenberg and Alex Brashears. Claire and I first met when we worked together at NetApp, where she was a top performer and rose crazy fast in the company. And Alex is just one of the most active, genuine people I know in the real estate space. The two of them together bring a blended background of project management, software design, and extensive experience with automation tools and virtual assistants. Through these experiences, they optimize any property to deliver a hands-off experience to owners while delivering the highest occupancy and highest daily rates possible. You guys know I would not recommend anything to anyone in this group that I do not fully endorse or think that is the absolute best product. And this company is that. And like I said before, this is the exact company and people that manage my Airbnbs. If you don't believe me, here are a few of the other tools and services that come along with the team: listing optimization, guest support and approval, communication and reservations, key exchange and management, dynamic pricing, welcome kit creation, listing advertising and marketing, vendor management, including cleaners, maintenance, handymen, runners, and monthly property reports. To learn more, check out shorttermmadeeasy.com or email info@shorttermmadeeasy.com. And on the forum, just mention that you heard it here or mention my name. So give it a try. You have nothing to lose, and they offer a satisfaction guarantee. And I assure you guys, you will not be disappointed. What's going on, guys? Today we have an awesome episode with Evan Manship. Evan is a recommendation from Rob Bergeron, so you know it's already going to be a good one. But just a seriously sick episode today. He scaled one of the fastest businesses maybe we've had on the show in terms of employees, in terms of building actual infrastructure in the business, which is real estate wholesaling. That's mainly what he's doing. But he only started in 13 or 14 with one single family house that he bought with his brother. And now they're doing about 500 deals a year. They've done over 2,000. And in addition to that, he's got some rentals. He owns about 15 units free and clear. But ultimately, he's just kind of taking over the Midwest from a wholesale standpoint, starting in Indy, but now moving into Cincinnati, Louisville, and just scaling a business that has been really, really successful. So we get into all the nuts and bolts of how he started, how he scaled his wholesale business, how much money he is making, how much money he thinks people can make, kind of just going through kind of what deals look like. And then we get into the version of it if he was starting again as a beginner with nothing or $500 out of college, living with his parents. How would he start over in the wholesale game today? Kind of going through where he's at and then how he would start over. It's kind of a cool side by side, and just dig into everything in between: relationships and tactics on showing properties and how you price properties and how you kind of build out infrastructure. So a lot of good ones in this if you're thinking about getting started in wholesaling, but also if you're just thinking about scaling and operating your business to run in a professional way so that you kind of have quality of life and time back. Because, Evan talks about a little bit, he's got his time back. He's hired people, he's got operations, and he did an office tour for me actually at the end of the episode, which we'll probably have to do as a separate episode, but or a separate piece of content. But it's really cool what he's grown this into. It's a sick office. So I think you guys are going to get tons of value out of this. The main learning I had from this is going to meetups is still so underrated. And I mean that from the sense of finding buyers for your deals, finding mentors, finding money for your deals. If you go to real estate meetups, they can be in person or virtual. It can make such a difference. So Evan talked about it, how now he hosts multiple meetups a month through his company and how they're consistently finding deals and buyers from these meetups, which those are the two hardest things to find in real estate at the moment. So he's finding a little hack within that. And you don't hear people talking about that as much as you used to because of COVID. Today's tangible tip. You guys may have seen, I have been playing around on TikTok a lot more. If not, check me out there. I will give you guys a little goodie for following or commenting on the last video, doing some giveaways there. But content is the game if you want to get your brand out there and your name out there. And I know it's uncomfortable, especially, for people that are more introverted. I felt very uncomfortable at the beginning, but it's so easy to grow on there compared to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can just get a lot of attention and a lot of views, and it doesn't take a lot to have 1 or 2 viral videos as a beginner, which is wild considering you can't get that on the other platforms. So my tangible tip would be download TikTok today, start following some business accounts, start following some real estate accounts, and then start creating content to grow your personal brand or your company's brand. You will be amazed at what could happen on that. So I know it's a little awkward and a little outside your comfort zone, but I recommend giving it a try and seeing what happens. All right, guys, without any further ado, awesome episode today with Evan Manship. Evan, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show. How are you?
Dude, thanks for having me. Mr. TikTok famous. I'm just happy to be in your presence.
Bro, are you on TikTok?
I was after I saw you. I was like, God, if this guy can do it, anyone can do it. No.
Dude, that's 4 weeks. That's 4 weeks, 100 G's.
We got into it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, whatever. Maybe we got our media guy downstairs kind of marched up one day and was like, why are we not doing this? So follow us, Mainstay Property Group at Mainstay PG. Yeah, it's you'll laugh. It's nothing crazy.
What are you doing on there? Dancing it or what?
No dancing. I'm not pretty enough to be doing that. No, just trying to, same story. Just trying to open up different ways for real estate folks, people that have been thinking about getting into it, and just showing them that there's value all over the place, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, or right here in the hillbilly Midwest. There's value all over the place and plenty of money to be had. So
for sure,
planting the seed, man. That's what we're good at.
For sure. All right. So we can get to TikTok later and social media, but I guess a good place to start would be, why would anyone watch you on social media and how you became who you are? So from a high level, take us back to what got you into real estate. What was your maybe first deal or your beginning deals? And then from a high level, if you could bring us up to speed on what it's turned into.
Sure thing. I guess first and foremost, for a lot of folks watching, we have a lot of success with people that are just getting into it, don't know what they don't know. And I was in that exact spot 8 years ago, 9 years ago maybe. But I was a broke 23-year-old recent college grad. I had a finance degree and knew I wanted to get into real estate. I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a piece of required reading in high school, which was awesome.
Really?
And yeah, it wasn't like you should read this book, it will change your life, or you could learn something from it. It was, we're having a quiz or the cash flow quadrant on Thursday type stuff. Yeah, it was crazy. So that was in high school. Yeah, so I was like, screw it. I want to. My mom was a math teacher and I liked money, so it was like, okay, I'll do this finance thing. So got into finance, graduated, so I want to do something in real estate. But I had $120,000 in student debt and didn't know what I didn't know. So went to a little pretty Catholic school, Xavier University. Shout out to my Musketeers. And yeah, said, screw it, I'm going to buy a house. I have no idea what I'm doing. Robert Kiyosaki said to start buying. So we started, my twin brother and I, who share our office together.
Okay, love it.
Bought our first house in 2013. And if you can imagine this, we conventionally financed a house in a very interesting area of Indianapolis. It was a $28,000 purchase price. It was already leased at $700. So I think I go back and look, but our mortgage payment was like barely more than what I was paying like for my light bill at the time. It was like $80 a month for your payment, your interest, taxes, insurance, everything was like $80 a month. It was goofy. Those days have long gone, but that's how we get started. We bought our first house and said, why isn't everyone doing this? It's leased at $700. Your outflows $80 or $90. How many of these can we do as soon as possible? And one led to 4, led to 8, led to 16, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. And then from a high level, what has the business turned into today? What's your day to day?
Yeah, so I own operate a group called Mainstay Property Group. We are Indianapolis' biggest wholesale operation. Wholesale is essentially the guys who go and provide investors with off-market deals. So for 99% of the world, when they want to buy a house, they type in Realtor.com or Zillow.com, and they go to uh, the website, click on a house, put in an offer, a very traditional way. Same way you'd go to a grocery store and you'd buy a gallon of milk. You don't want to go and find the cow and milk it yourself. You just want to go to Kroger and pick up a gallon of milk and move on. We do all the milking, all the cow identification, all that type of stuff, and we sell the gallon of milk to you guys. So that's what wholesalers do. We wholesale 500 or 600 properties a year here in Indianapolis, and we got started because in the middle of buying our first couple of properties, and we were broke college kids or ex-college kids. We had one of our property managers who came up to us and said, "Hey, I really like that house. I'll just buy it from you." And I didn't even know that was something that people did, is buy it for on day one for A and sell it on day two for A plus B. And that's exactly what we did. And it changed my life. So we made some quick money. It wasn't a buy and hold, which is what I traditionally like to do, or thought I liked to do. But that's how I first learned about wholesaling, and it turned into an operation. Now we have 22 people on staff. We're in Indianapolis, now Louisville, Kentucky, and soon to be Cincinnati, Ohio. And we're just trying to start a little empire here in the Midwest. So
Love it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to come back to that because I think scaling is where everyone wants to be. But back to the beginning, where I feel like a lot of our listeners are maybe trying to figure out where the opportunity is today. But it sounds like what you did at the time was kind of just jump right in. So was it an on-market deal, that your first deal, and how did you finance it? How did it end up going? I guess you said it also wasn't probably something that could be done today, but is there anything, I guess, from how you did it also that, could be pulled and used today? But I guess just from a high level, how did it go? And maybe if you could tell us some of the details about how you got into it.
Yeah, so I got into it again just by sheer luck. The market was wildly different in 2013 than it is now. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to understand kind of what's been happening. You can read a Twitter article and see that real estate is ultra expensive compared to what it was 7 or 8 years ago. So timing was everything with us. We just got out, we were broke, and said, screw it. We're just going to buy a house and see what happens, which we could afford to do back then. We conventionally financed a $30,000 or $28,000 house, which means we went through the traditional process of getting a mortgage, applying for it, giving them their pay stubs, and all this other stuff. And someone somewhere decided that not only was it okay to lend to a college kid with $120,000 in student debt, but to lend a very trivial amount of money, $24,000, whatever it was at the time, to a college kid with no experience. So that's how we got started on our first deal. And it was kind of neat because while that happened, I really get to learn about all the other ways that, that was so cumbersome and so time consuming. Our hand was forced into, how do people that have hundreds and hundreds of doors, how do they do it? Certainly they're not saving, putting in a down payment. Saving, putting in a down payment. There's no way, it's inefficient. So while we did that for the first go, it was really cool because it forced our hand into what we were going to do on the next, several dozen that we ended up performing on.
So did you have a job at the time, or did you just go straight into this and say, I'm going full-time real estate?
Great question. I did have a job, and forgive me if I've not been super transparent. I actually ended up getting a job in real estate. So I graduated from X in 2013 with a finance degree, and I told myself, I wanted my first gig to be real estate related. And that was very, the longer I went unemployed, it became much more vague on what real estate related meant. But I ended up getting my first job. I worked with a tax consulting group here in Indianapolis that did property tax work. So I had a 9 to 5, but I was driving to work early. I was leave the house at like 5 or 6, get to the office at 6 or 7, and just do my own stuff for an hour and a half, just underwriting deals. Flying around, looking at what's on the market. Understanding what property taxes were, how insurance worked, different players in the city. Then I'd stay. After my job concluded at 6, whatever. I'd stay till 8 or whatever every night, and then drive home at 9. So I was a college kid. I didn't have any kids or any responsibilities. I was living at home. It wasn't very heavy lifting for me. I could get away with doing that, but had a job and then just said, screw it, I'm gonna start buying houses and see what happens. And we got really lucky on our first one.
Okay, I gotcha. So you start buying, or you buy that first house, it goes well. like what was your progression after that? You know, like a lot of people may have one house listening and they're not sure how to scale that, or they may have a couple and they're running out of money potentially to keep putting down payments down. So what did the progression look like for you after that first house?
Man, you're nailing it. If you're listening and that's where you're at, that's exactly what happened to us. I mean, to a T. So we bought 1226 Oxford Street in Indianapolis, 46201. Feel free to give that a Google. That was a $28,000 purchase, and we put our down payment on there. And that was, I wish I had these numbers in front of me. It was 4 or 5 grand that we had to come up with, 20% of whatever $28,000 is. But that was all the money in the world to a broke kid, right? So I was working, saving. And I had a business partner, right? So it was 2 of us doing this together to buy this house. And we bought one, and we didn't have enough money to take our girlfriends out for drinks or dinner or anything. It was just, we were broke, living at home. Bought this first house. Said, okay, great. It was performing and it worked, and yippee. And we kind of look at each other like, shit, we got to save for another 8 months to get this next one done. So we saved. And in early 2014, we bought our next house. And then we were really out of money, but we had 2 performing assets. And when we went to buy our third property, we actually kind of came up with this solution. Like, man, we keep hearing about these people borrowing this hard money thing and this whole like BRRRR method, like you buy it and you fix it up. And it wasn't even called the BRRRR method at the time. It was just buy it, then fix it up, make it worth more, take out the money. There was no like books written on it or anything goofy in 2014. But we bought the thing using someone else's money. We fixed it up using someone else's money. We rented it out, and then we ended up refinancing it. And that gentleman that lent me the money was a property manager / hard money lender of ours that we actually found on BiggerPockets. He said, look, man, you're the one making all the money here. I don't want to lend you money. I don't want to manage your properties. I just want you to sell stuff to me. Would you consider selling, the next property you find to me if it's not something that you want to keep? So not only did we get our third deal under our belt with none of our own money, but we found our first wholesale deal at the same time. So deal number 3 was a hard money deal that we bought ourselves, and deal 4 was when we were going to buy ourselves and ended up selling off to someone else.
Okay, I gotcha. So at the beginning, it sounds like you had the W-2, but it just sounds like you were really hungry and like you were bound to make it work. I think a lot of people are looking for like a silver bullet, but it sounds to me like you were just looking for all the strategies. You were looking to find off market deals. If you could buy it as a rental, great. If you could then maybe flip it as a wholesale, great. Maybe if you could then partner with someone, that could be an option. So like at the time, what were you doing to get basically like a footing in the industry? Like, was it education? Was it going to meetups? Was it having a mentor? Like anything tactical that maybe, again, a beginner listening right now is thinking, all right, I want to take that track. I have a job, I have a deal, or maybe I'm about to have my first deal, but what can I do to give myself a better chance of being able to take off like Evan did?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that question with a story, sort of, because I remember it every single time something like this comes up. When I was at school, I was a junior, and my job on campus, I worked on campus. My job on campus was to essentially manage a database for what Xavier called the Executive Mentor Program. And every business student got a person, a local executive. It could be someone that owned, a lawn care business, or, the CEO of Kroger, to be their mentor, to kind of show, here's how I would interview, here's how I'd reach out, type of jobs I'd apply for, yada, yada, yada. Well, one of my mentors, he was a chief financial officer for a flavor company in Erlanger, Kentucky, right next to Cincinnati. And this gentleman told me, one of his only real piece of advice that I took to heart was, you're a college kid. You can get away with murder. Like, take as many people out for coffee and beer and whatever else, like if you say, hey, I'm an undergrad, I don't know what I'm doing, I'd like to pick your brain. A lot of people have been there and done that, like to share, that they like to talk about themselves. That's human nature. It's why you and I are on this freaking podcast, right? So I kind of took that to heart. And when I was first getting started, I think I had a deal or 2 under my belt. I just nonstop, relentlessly, just a colossal amount of time I took just to meet other people. So I know it's difficult for fathers or people that have super intense high jobs. Obviously, COVID doesn't help. But man, we went to every meetup we could. My brother and I did. Took people for coffee, beers, drinks, lunch, whatever, every single week, and met some of the right people at the right time, including the guy that ended up buying our first wholesale deal. So that was a big piece of it. But at the same time, you're right. We had a bloodthirst for understanding how this whole thing worked. I worked in, again, commercial property tax. So I was learning every day. My 9 to 5 was paying me to learn about, to underwrite deals, essentially, how to value deals. And my twin brother worked for a hedge fund that underwrote commercial debt for massive retail structures. So he had the debt side of things kind of figured out in his 9 to 5 as well. So from 5 to 9, or from 9 to 5, we worked for someone else, and from 5 to 9, we worked for ourselves and just took what we learned during the day to make it happen, simultaneous to networking. And it just kind of works out. You don't have to make some, like you said, there's no real silver bullet. You just do it time over time, and it compounds. And eventually look at yourself, it's like, crap, I might know what I'm doing here.
All right. I love that story. I talk about that story, like, or not story, but strategy a lot on TikTok or on the Facebook group or whatever. Like, you have this window of your life from like, anytime before you're maybe 25, not to say that you can't do it after 25, but like, people will return your call. People see themselves in a young hustler that's under 25 years old, and they see that person in a way that they want to help that person because they're still trying to figure it out. And maybe they can help kind of shape that person a little bit. Not to say you can't do it when you're 30 years old, but it's definitely a little less exciting reaching out to someone at 30 years old. Like, a lot of those older people, this might be a little bit crude, but if someone's 30 reaching out as opposed to 18, they think that person should have it figured out already,
Right.
But the 22-year-old may be trying to figure it out. And if they're hungry, they can use that. So I have a very similar experience how I found my first mentor, but it's really cool to hear cool. You did the exact same thing. We have a young audience that I think can do something very similar to that. So that's just really cool. I mean, with you, man, I could just tell like you were going to make it work. Like you kind of have that whatever it takes mentality. I could just tell, and talking a little before in this and like through Rob, but like that's a hack, man. If you can get around the right people and use your age to kind of get in different rooms that you maybe couldn't when you're older, it just sounds like you made such good use out of that.
I mean, I was a sponge, and there were so many things I did for free, and I made a lot of people really rich just by putting in the extra time or whatever to get their project across the finish line. But again, the connections I took and the advice I got from it, it all ended up working out. So cool. You're right. And I turned 31 in July, so I can totally say this now. But I mean, after you turn 30, it tanks. It goes away. Someone who's 30 years old, have some kids, you got get life figured out, grow up type situation. But man, when you're recent college kid or early 20s, whatever, like abuse it. It's silly not to.
It's so true. I love that, man. All right. So Evan, I have a bunch of questions. I almost want to shift to then kind of more the wholesale business and the day-to-day of it and kind of building and scaling systems. We have a lot of wholesalers in our group. So from a high level, you kind of explain what wholesaling is, but can you just give it a quick blurb, kind of, how you think about it and what it really means in the simplest version? I know you mentioned the dairy farmer. So for someone that doesn't understand wholesaling, what is wholesaling and how do you make money from it?
Yeah, great question, and we get it all the time. So I use the example of a cow, right? If someone wants to buy a gallon of milk, they don't go find a cow and then milk it and pasteurize it and put it through the thing and get it FDA approved. No, they go to the grocery store and they buy a gallon of milk. Mm-hmm. Same way, if someone wants to buy a house, they're not going to go knock on doors and send postcards and text messages and do negotiation. No, they're going to get on Zillow.com, click on a house, and send an offer, right? So wholesalers provide kind of the dirty, nitty gritty, true organic sourcing of real estate deals for investors. We do the dirty work. We were the ones sending postcards and advertising online and the signs you see on every intersection ever anymore. We buy houses cash. That's what wholesaling is and does. We identify projects for other people. So you don't have to. And we get paid a fee to do it. We've been doing it since 2014 and the business has gone nuts as the market has.
All right. So let's dig into some of the nuts and bolts of it. At the beginning, how were you finding deals and how are you finding deals today?
I'll talk about today first, because honestly, I forget how we were finding deals back in 2014. I had no idea what I was doing. We have my group takes the approach of differentiate yourself at all costs, which is ironic because I have an identical twin. But do everything different, right? So we have a massive online presence. We have a cold call team that we own and operate here out of Indianapolis. That all they do is nonstop cold call individuals based on the data we pull. But we have our data managers in house. We have a cold call team in house. We send outbound SMS text messages here in house. We don't send the traditional letters because it's cheap and anyone can do it. So we want to do things that are a little bit more different that we'll differentiate ourselves from maybe some of the new guys trying to get in. So no offense to the people that are watching, but everyone and their brothers sending letters. So my encouragement would be, if you're going to send a letter, fine, but make it different than the next guy, because they're going to get stack them? How do you set yourself apart?
Mm.
In 2014, to kind of go back to your previous question, John, that's really all we knew how to do, right? Just send letters and people call you and whatever. And the market was just massively different back then. People didn't get 8 letters, they got 1. And then they said, oh, this guy wants to buy my house, I'll call him and sell it to him. So again, the market's been our friend. That's no secret. We really picked the perfect time to start this whole thing. But as the market shifts, your strategy needs to as well. And that's essentially what we've done.
Okay, I gotcha. And as far as, like picking areas or pulling lists, I assume now you're at the point where you're pretty much, I could be wrong, but I assume you're pretty much just buying the whole market, as far as records go, and then just hitting it hard. Or are you still a place where you're being more specific with neighborhoods and types of lists you're pulling, to start going outbound to?
Yeah. So Clay handles a lot of the, Clay, my twin brother, my business partner, handles a lot of the seller identification. I work kind of on the back end, but I do know we've had the entirety of Jefferson County being Louisville and Marion County being Indianapolis records for a long time, where we can just blast and spray as much as we can. But for us, it's kind of nature of the beast. When you do this for 8 years, there are only so many houses in Indianapolis to contact, so you kind of aggregate it all by nature of what you do. But for folks just getting started and maybe trying to give this wholesale thing a shot, or maybe just buy and hold guys that want to identify their own deal instead of paying greasy wholesalers like me a fee for doing so, my recommendation is pick a zip code, pick a census tract, pick a neighborhood where you can really take more of a sniper rifle approach as opposed to a Gatling gun of just send it all out and see what happens. It gives you a better way to negotiate if you know the streets and houses as intimately as you do. And the same goes for buyers, especially if you're out of state, right? Like if you can make more educated, competitive offers if you know everything intimately well, as opposed to trying to know Indianapolis. If you can hone in on Warren Township or Lawrence Township or Southern Broad Ripple where we are here, it goes a massive ways with understanding how that works. Makes you more competitive. So I feel like I'm rambling now, but that's what we did when we were younger. We picked a handful of investors. We knew exactly what they want, and we went out and found that, not the other way around. We picked the person and found what they wanted, as opposed to finding a property and blasting it to everyone else.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that approach, but that makes total sense. Like you need to be able to sell whatever you find. So you might as well start with what your end buyer wants, which is, pretty logical.
And in 2014, 2015, it was a lot harder to find a buyer maybe than it would be now, but that's what we did. And again, it was just more proof of concept, oh shit, you heard those Manship guys, they're starting to wholesale too. And then, again, it just builds on itself.
Totally. It's so true. And it's such a collaborative industry. So you send out outbound, you're cold calling, texting, maybe, sprinkling in a little direct mail. And now let's say you're getting, leads. So for you day to day now, what does your process look like of when the phone starts ringing or people start filling out online forms, how are you handling and processing, inbound leads to know, one, if they're good deals, if they are good deals, how do you kind of analyze them and move forward with those? Because, it sounds like a good problem, but I think for a lot of people, even when they get leads coming back, it's like an oh shit moment. Like, oh, I got what I wanted, but I don't even know if it's a good deal. I don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
Man, this business will never surprise. I mean, even folks that have a relatively successful business like me, there's still the issues we bump into all the time where it's like, now what, right? We'll try something new. Now what? So-and-so's out on vacation. Now, now what? So there are always going to be surprises. And I keep, what wakes me up every day is like, I'm sure Google, Apple, all these massive companies have the same thing, like now what type situation. So it's not a bad thing so long as it's fixed. And that's what we aim to do as business owners, is fix professionally, put out fires. So for us, when we send outbound stuff, right, we spend X to send things out. We expect X plus Y to come back in. We have what we've found to be the most successful is to train people in-house to what we call process leads. They're called lead generation specialists. We have 6 of them downstairs, and all they do all day long is work with our cold call team, which is totally hireable and outsourceable. So when you hear me say cold call team, anyone that's watching this can hire cold callers to call on your behalf. It's extremely easy. There are many companies that do it. Reach out to John or I, we can point you in the right direction. But we have our cold call team is proprietary to us, and then they work with the cold call team to process the lead, clean it up, polish it up, and make sure it's something that makes sense for our acquisitions guys. Where we found the biggest disconnect is acquisitions or our sales team, the guys who are actually putting pen to paper with the seller, expect something worthwhile. and oftentimes they don't know what that is. They can't highlight motivation or pain points or anything that would make a property worth pursuing on our end. So we've essentially put a line of people between our acquisitions team and our cold call team that serve as a syndicate, which is a fancy word for middleman, to make sure that these people do their job and make sure that the acquisitions guys get what they want. So I think the best way for a starting person to figure this out is, man, like, talk to your buddy about it, figure out if you can partner up on some of these deals, pay, your buddy a percentage of whatever deal closes up, and make sure they can have an understanding of what's going on, and make sure that, you guys all are on the same page of what you're signing up and AKA what you're selling. So that's what we do. It works for us, but obviously everyone's got different systems. We want to make sure that when we go and we talk to the seller, we know exactly what's happening, so we can make an educated, differentiated approach to getting their property bought.
Totally. So that makes complete sense. So I guess just kind of like clicking into that a little bit. So a lead comes in, and hear a lot of people talk about, oh, you want like all the different rules of like calculating ARV or backing into an offer price. At what point do you start thinking about, or your team starts thinking about offer prices relative to, locking a property up, or do they need to see it first in order to do that? Like, what does that process look like for your business? Because I know also some people, they never see it. They're making offers sight unseen, or they're sending kind of like an inspector out to just take pictures and lock it up. So, again, what does that look like for you?
My business is going to be a lot different than other folks. When I first started in this or whatever, we had one acquisitions guy, and he was doing appointments, what we call appointments, for every single property. Go out, shake hands, kiss babies, take pictures. Let me go back to the office, put together some numbers, and we'll send you a formalized piece of paper. The market is really dependent on how your business should run, and what sacrifices you need to make or not make to make something work. We started realizing about 2017 that, we didn't want to get beat by folks that could essentially buy from behind a computer. So we started closing all of our deals over the phone, meaning we'll sign it up, we'll get it locked up, remotely, and then we'll start our process of getting through and, renegotiating if necessary, which we don't like to do. But, we'll close 40, 50 deals a month off of strictly just, hi, Mr. Seller, how you doing? Negotiate over the phone, send them DocuSign, boom, it's done. And that was simply just a paradigm shift we had to make, because it seems, at least to me, it seems super, super difficult to do. How the hell are you just going to sign something up over the phone? How are you going to make an educated decision when you can't see it? Especially if you're far away, blah, 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 blah. And I think much like what you'll find in the your disposition side of things, these are my manship nuggets right here.
Yep.
As soon as you can get someone emotionally bought in physically to either selling their property or buying a property, you'll have a lot more success actually going through and being a part of that transaction. So if you can get someone to commit to buying or commit to selling, whether you've seen it or not, or they've seen it or not, it'll go a super long way.
Okay, I gotcha. And one question we get a lot, more for virtual wholesalers, but again, local too, it's important, especially someone like you that has systems and a team, like, what is the process of, okay, you get a deal, a lead comes in, you qualify it, they want to sell, it's at a price that you want to buy it. What does the next part of the process look like? And I mean, specifically to the sense of, some people, they'll send out, an inspector, they'll get a professional inspection done. They'll make that part of their seller report so that when they put it on Facebook or send it to their buyers list, that's the inspection, and no one else is going to go see the property. They're not having walkthroughs. They're not doing anything like that. They don't want to disrupt the seller. So what does that look like for you, or what do you think of that?
Selfishly, I think it's a bad idea and a great way to shred money. We don't do that. We go through it on our own after we have it locked up. We let people go through. It's a house. There are a handful of guys that do what we do here in the market that you can't get through. Highest and best offer, bidding war city. It is what it is. You know what you're buying type deal. And a lot of times the people don't know what they're buying, especially if they're 2,000 miles away in San Francisco or something like that, which we see a lot of here in the Midwest. A ton of outside buyers, like I'm sure you guys do just the same. We lock it up over the phone. A lot of times it's, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm glad we could figure that out. Do you mind if I keep you on the phone while we send you this DocuSign? I can answer any questions you have about the purchase agreement, just to make sure it's not, let me talk to my wife, click, then they go, so you never hear from them again.
That's smart. Yeah.
These guys are trained to be on the phone while they sign the purchase agreement. And once they do, cool. Then we'll go through, get our picture guy out there set up and make sure, there wasn't any misinformation with what the seller was telling us. Or if they don't know, then even better. We can go use that and go, renegotiate what we just agreed to. So that's how we work. We let anyone who wants to get inside, as many as oftentimes as they want. And I think that goes a long way with brand recognition, as opposed to, nope, you know what you're buying. Give me my $50,000 sign-up fee and move on. People remember that. And I think when the market corrects, the highest and best people, the bidding war people, and you know what you're buying, you're not getting inside your house again. People remember that. It won't be good.
So I just want to make sure I understand what you mean. So you're saying what I was asking was for buyers. So like, you hear some wholesalers talking about how once they have a property locked up, they will send it out to their buyers list. And then, sometimes you'll have buyers that want to see the property or do a walkthrough. Do you do an open house type thing? Do you let them do walkthroughs, or is it based on the pictures and the detail that you can provide about the property? For as far as an owner goes, no, I totally get what you mean. That would be insane. I feel like if someone wouldn't let their owner back into the property.
My bad. Yeah. So we don't do like an open house type thing. Ours is a first come first serve. So if we have, like today we have a deal of duplex in Louisville that we're selling for $100,000 or whatever it is. And it's at 4:00, and we had a handful of folks reach out that want to go through it. We don't want to overwhelm the seller. So we're actually, our contractor's taking the seller out for lunch or dinner or whatever the hell it is, getting her out of the house while our people go through and do that thing. We normally don't do a big open house type thing, but if we do, we don't want it to be super shady and get people all talking and rock the boat. So if we need to get a bunch of people through at once, we will, but normally that doesn't happen. It's normally more one by one, which is more legwork, but we found it, people like that a little bit more, as opposed to getting a horde of people through there, and
totally,
it just gets weird quick.
So I guess on that note, for most of your transactions, are people buying sight unseen, or do most of your buyers want to do a walk through the property, or at least get someone there to see it?
What we've found that works the best, especially when something's a hyper competitive property, right? Let's say, a brick ranch and a cool school system. Someone's going to lease it out and give it to their kids at some point, right? Everyone's going to buy this. We'll see that thing sell sight unseen, and oftentimes, get an inspector in or whoever in just for informational purposes more than anything else. We want to make sure what they're buying. We've sell plenty where folks buy sight unseen, and that's it. They buy on pictures and it's done. But yeah, it really depends on the property. Obviously, if you're talking some big, sexy, urban core redevelopment flip type deal or whatever, people aren't just going to buy things sight unseen. It really depends on the property, and I would recommend to your listeners that approach it like that. There shouldn't be a uniform process for every single property. You need to kind of rebucket them for A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. If you got some dump in the hood, they're going to want to get through it. You get some, classic redevelopment, Victorian and Old Town, Durham or whatever it is. They're going to want to get through it. But 3-1 on a slab and a great school system, brick, good condition. What are we talking about? It's a house. So
for sure,
that's how we approach it.
And what about situations where there are tenants in place? You see a lot of different models out there with wholesaling, where people are wholesaling almost like turnkey rentals. And that's definitely a different buyer than selling flip properties that, you're basing your kind of value prop off ARV. So, how do you deal with tenants, or do you ever target, buyers that are looking for quote unquote turnkey rentals and, use that as kind of a exit strategy?
Yeah, so my group handles stuff a little bit differently. We found that, a lot of folks don't want to buy, they want the turnkey product at the turnkey price, essentially, right? For those of you who don't understand turnkey, they're listening, we've trained our guys in-house that there are 3 different things that people want to buy when they buy investment real estate. They buy a rental, which is easy to understand. They buy a flip, which is even easier to understand. And there's kind of a weird in between, a hybrid of the two, if you will, a rental and a flip called a turnkey property. That means their property's sexy, it's done, it's been rehabbed, there's a tenant inside of it, it's performing, but someone's going to buy not necessarily that house, but that income stream more than they are going to buy the property. So they want something that's easy, delivered, performing, done, right? We found that folks like that, obviously. Who doesn't want something that's already rehabbed and already leased? But oftentimes when turnkey properties sell, they'll sell for 100 to 110% of what the property is actually worth.
Mhm.
People want a deal, man. That's why we're all in this industry. We want to get selling for 60, 70 cents on the dollar. And so we do a handful of things, including a gentleman on our staff here is essentially a project manager who we can go through there and offer construction services on behalf of that behalf of that individual to make sure they're buying for 50 cents, putting another 10 cents on the dollar into the property. They're all in for 60, 65 cents. So they feel like they're getting a deal and we're making money at the same time. So that's a lot of gobbledygook for, again, find a way to differentiate yourself. We're the only group in the city that can do that because we've spent and wasted, frankly, a lot of money on having that happen. But we give people a big button that they can push and proceed with the deal, and just make it answering questions that exist with, I need to get someone on the roof, I need to get a bid, I need to get my inspector, I need to get the sewer scoped, all these different no's, all these different objections. We try and make it as easy as possible for those to go away.
I gotcha. Yeah, just different exit strategies that I feel like the typical wholesaler who has kind of square peg, square hole is not going to be able to kind of do or leverage. So that's pretty cool. I guess just, going through the way I was thinking about this, like these questions was kind of going through your business, like the step-by-step, how I think about like the 4 or 5 main pillars of wholesaling. And then we'll do like a beginner version right after this if someone's just starting, but kind of just like finishing the, like, your day to day. Cause it's so interesting what you've been able to build up in a short period of time. Like, again, a lot of people listening to this might have a hard time understanding, like 22 employees, full-time business doing 500 deals in a year, in maybe 7 years. That's pretty insane. So, just kind of going through it. So I guess just the last part, last 2 parts here. When you're selling a deal, are your dispo strategies, your exit strategies, can you talk about that a little bit or, walk us through what that looks like for you?
Sure. I'll answer as best I can. And if this isn't what you're looking for, smack me away and I'll re-answer. We exclusively wholesale. So we don't hold for ourselves. We don't flip any properties. We don't hold any Airbnbs or anything at all. I've got my portfolio. All my people out here have their portfolios, but every deal that comes in via our marketing channels, we wholesale. So we have one exit strategy only. Now to what I think you're asking is, how do you make that happen? How do you find different people, different buyers, different whatever? Kind of like what I said earlier, if you can take your people, everyone is so obsessed with the buyers list, right? Put me on the buyers list, put me on the buyers list. And that's again, nothing wrong with it. It works. It's worked for years, but Gatling gun approach, right? Just spray and pray and find as many people as possible. And one person will raise their hand and buy.
For sure.
That's great, but it doesn't build your brand. It doesn't personally or your company. And really, if you can do well by 1 or 2 people, as opposed to, guys you don't know that ended up some VA scraped a list and put them in a buyer's list. We found that, if you can offer other services other than just finding a deal, it really opens up your breadth for people that want to work with you. So we have a hard money, private money shop we work with. We broker loans for. We have a construction service that we offer folks. We have an inspector in-house that can go out and answer questions, things like that. So it's obviously when you're just starting out, it's tough to do. But I'm telling you right now, any idiot, anyone with a single-digit IQ can broker hard money. It's the easiest thing in the world. So if you can find a way to get your people, or maybe some jerk on the street, money to buy your deal, you become that much more marketable. And that's what we've done to really bolster our exit strategies in our department, at least.
Okay, gotcha. I'm glad you prefaced with that. And then I guess just some of the like tactical stuff, is it still mostly dependent on a buyer's list, or are you guys putting your deals on Facebook? Are you guys calling back through people that you think may be interested, just curious, the tactics that you guys use?
Yeah. So we have a guy on staff, Luke, who runs our dispositions or our sales. So he's responsible for all this stuff, right? I don't look at it, approve it, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He does everything. And Luke gets compensated to identify new buyers. So if Luke uses the list, he's driving off the lunch right now. If Luke uses the list that I put together, my buyers list, what my company started with, that's fine. He doesn't get as much of his commission as he otherwise would if he goes out and hunts someone new. So I tell everyone, you're only as good as the brand you're building, the list you're building. Status quo is our worst enemy here. Mm-hmm. So taking the same people, spray and pray, maybe adding to them every couple of months, it's not going to get you anywhere. So we are constantly hosting events, networking things, meeting new people, adding new folks, to the point now where about just shy of 40% of our deals make it to our true buyers list. Mm-hmm. And the other 60% are just the squeaky wheels that show up at the office, show up at networking events, or we just know from working with them so frequently that this is what they're looking for, and we can just plug and play that quickly.
I saw something sort of interesting this week. I'm curious what your take on it is. Like an additional income stream for wholesalers. What they had was they have two sets of lists. They have like their premier buyers list, and then they have their like tier two. And they charge people to be on their tier one, like a subscription plan, whatever it is, maybe like $49 a month. And I couldn't tell if I thought it was genius or scum, but I just thought it was interesting. And, like in a world where everyone's looking for a deal, I'm sure there is a market for that. But how do you think about something like that? Like, what was your knee-jerk reaction just hearing that?
I would be lying through my teeth if I said we hadn't thought of something like that. I think I'm a dirty, greedy Republican capitalist, man. That's what I'm all about. So, we think about that stuff all the time. How can we kind of put ancillary income streams into this thing? And I nipped it in the butt, a couple months ago, because in my opinion, that screams much like the folks that, we're going to take our offers and we're going to take, we're going to get everyone through once. We're going to take all the offers and bid them against each other. It's poor form when the market corrects. You know what I mean? You're gonna have a ton of people unsubscribing when the market tanks, and then you're just gonna be that asshole that charged me $50 to get deals for everyone else. So
totally.
I might be wrong, I might be right. I don't know. I want to be the guy that, whether it's 2008 or today, that people can look to and say, man, Manship did me right. And did he punt on maybe another $5,000 over 10 grand, 20 grand, 20 grand over 10 years is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I encourage everyone to think that way. If you're going to be a successful real estate investor, a successful wholesaler, again, this is just my opinion. It could be very wrong, but 20 grand over 10 years to me is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, I would encourage that, what you're losing in opportunity cost by just, screwing some people might be worth a little bit more than that. So probably no would be the short answer to your question. I love the idea. I'm glad people are doing it, but we won't be one.
I gotcha. All right. And just kind of rounding out, like going through the line of questions for your wholesale process. I feel like this, in a good way, may be hard for you to answer, because at this point now, I feel like you're really good at building systems and you've put people in place to be successful. But any tools or softwares or systems that you use in your business every day that, you recommend, or they basically drive the business to make things work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really good question, especially for you folks that are just, you've done a couple of deals and now you need to start putting some things together to make it easier for you to communicate. We were on a product called Podio, and certainly everyone's heard about it. Anyone that's watched any YouTube videos was on it. We were on that for years and years, and it's a great starter product. There's a gentleman named Don Tilling that has a product called Beast Mode. It's a nice little interface. It's built out specifically for folks that are, on the lower end of the real estate wholesaling totem pole. So Don, I talked to him yesterday. Tell him Manship sent you. It's a great product for folks first getting started. Now, as soon as you start pushing 40, 50 deals a month, and you have these extremely automated, follow-up processes, and it becomes a little more cumbersome. We're on Salesforce, which is a massive CRM based out of San Francisco and now here in Indy. But they're kick-ass, and they are comparing, a 3-year-old T-ball to the New York Yankees from Podio and Salesforce concern. So when you get to that point, if you feel like forking out 30 grand, 40 grand a year for Salesforce, do it. But until that point, Podio is going to be your best friend.
I hear that 100%. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, but that just seems to be kind of the industry, norm for a reason. So, Evan, you handled the line of interrogation on your business. Awesome. What I'd love to do next before we get out of here is kind of go through the starter version of it. Like if you were 21 again or 18 again, the person that either didn't go to college or did go to college, it does not matter, especially if you want to do real estate wholesaling. But let's say, you lose everything money-wise, this won't happen, but let's say, you're starting over, you got $500 and you're maybe living with your parents and you're like, I want to rebuild this business and I want to grow it as quick as I can, as smart as I can, knowing what I know now. What would your first couple moves be?
Awesome question. And I was there, man. I didn't start with $500. I started with, negative 120,000. So fuck, I'd kill somebody for $500. I live with my parents, man. My father's now one of our 22 folks here in the office, and it gives me goosebumps to tell the story, man. But I didn't grow up with anything. I was poor and never. My mom's a teacher. My dad was some pencil pusher for a massive company here in Indy, and I live with my parents. They were gracious enough to let me live there, and I didn't see it as sponging off them or, not cool or anything like that. It was just, I got a good relationship with my folks and I live with my parents. That's the first thing I would do just to combat the biggest cost you have. If you can't do that or aren't fortunate enough to do that, that's fine. But you gotta be humble enough to just hang up the cleats and say, what's more important? Do you want to live in some kick-ass part of town, go out for drinks and do that type of thing, or do you just want to, shelf 10,000 hours of your life for the next 100 years essentially? So that's what I did, and it worked out for me. But I lived with mom and dad. Then I subsequently bought a house hack. So for you beginners, I'd strongly consider looking into what house hacking is. Buying a multifamily property, less than 4 units, and living in one and leasing out the others. It combats your mortgage payment to the point where you have no outflow for your housing and you're building equity simultaneously. So really neat thing. That's what I did. It worked out really well for me. But as far as wholesaling specifically goes, or getting involved in deals specifically, one of the other couple guys I met from just existing was a gentleman named Larry Mitchell. He was the president of the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. And I just approached him after some event, like, hey, you're awesome. I'm poor. I don't know anything. Can you teach me some stuff? And he's like, yeah. And he said, when you're 21 or 81, you have to kind of look at yourself in the mirror every day and understand where you stand on the 3 T's. And everyone's got some dumb, I feel like an old man saying that's got some dumb acronym or something, but this one actually hit home with me. And the 3 T's: time, treasury, talent. Understand where you fit in, what you can, every deal, every project, every business needs those 3 things. Where do you fit in? And when you're 21 and you got $500, obviously you have no freaking treasury, right? You got $500, it's nothing. But you have a whole lot of time. You can put in the time. You can go run these errands. You can go check out these things. You can check on properties that exist, go network, blah, blah, blah. So, and you obviously, no offense, have no talent. So you have no treasury, have no talent. We get all the time in the world. So exist and use that 1 T that you have access to and just pour gasoline on it, man. Exist, be a sponge, meet these people, hang out, run errands for them, pick up your freaking phone. You don't need to start sending mailers right away or jump into texting or anything goofy, but just exist, be a sponge, use that T that is time, so you can build up your other ones, treasury and talent, simultaneously.
Yeah, so true. I mean, the after talking to so many people on this, and doing it myself and just kind of thinking through all the different ways you could do it, like getting around the right people, it's so trite, it's so cliche, but like it's the hack. Like if you're 18 years old and you can bring someone value or pay them to get around them and learn what they've taken 15 years to learn, like that is the hack. Like you don't need to make money in your first year, 2, 3 years. Like it doesn't matter. It'll compound, it'll grow. But like the experience and the knowledge and taking that sponge mentality that I remember you were mentioning earlier, like that is it. Now that's hard for a lot of people to hear, that in kind of entitled 2021 America, people come out of college and think they deserve to be making 150 grand. They're in for a rude awakening when, they get to the marketplace. But like, that is the thing, like just such a common theme of this podcast. So it's just so refreshing to kind of hear you say that. So,
well, and man, I was there and I remember thinking out loud, and like, much like you were, go put in the time, go put in the time, go put in the time. It's like, man, I'm not making any money. You know what I mean? Like, why am I going to continue to do this? I can see no direct fruits from labor. And especially in this industry, man, if you're 18, 20 years old, even like you said, I agree, sub 25, and you can just put 1 foot forward. That is the foot forward that you need to. You can pedal a bike to a meetup and exist there, and that will build your net worth. You won't see it, but that's going to be it. I can't say that loudly enough. And again, it worked for me. Obviously, it's worked for you. So I'm hoping that if there's one takeaway from this whole thing, time, treasury, talent, everyone here has got the time. I'm getting ready to be a dad in 3 hours. So not 3 hours. Depends when this goes. A couple days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So I may not have the time, but man, if you're 20 years old, 25 years old, you have the time. Just make it.
That's amazing. Evan, this has been so fun, man. And Rob has delivered again with another great introduction, man.
Good, man.
Rob Bergeron, friend of the podcast. So Evan, just before we get you out here, what's the best way for people to learn about what you're doing, get in touch, check out your deals, maybe be on your buyers list, all that?
I'll give thanks again for having me, man. Thanks for shouting up, let me shout stuff out. We're super easy to find, and we're the most boring, vanilla, steady Eddie hillbillies in the world, man. Indianapolis is the most boring city in the world, and we like it that way. So we're super easy to find. Mainstay Property Group is my group, at Mainstay PG on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. Super. TikTok too, by the way. Up on TikTok now, which is terrific.
We got to collab on TikTok. We should do some live content, maybe some Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I'll regardless, but okay. So is it it's all the business name on all those, or is it your name too?
If users mainstay Indianapolis, it'll pop up.
Okay.
Feel free to follow me personally, but the company is really what gets it all done.
Okay.
And really, if you ever find yourself in Indianapolis, we have a couple of networking events every month. In fact, on Friday, we had something called Food Truck Friday, where we had a couple food trucks in our parking lot show up, and it's just free beer, free food for everyone to get together and network, because we believe so strongly in time, not just for other folks, but for us too. We had someone bring us a deal, an 18-year-old kid. I don't just make this up, Casey, bring us a deal. You heard about Food Truck Friday, just the same. So it works for me, it works for you. Find yourself in Indianapolis, swing by the office. We'd love to buy a drink if you're 21, or coffee if not, and hang out.
All right, bro. That sounds great, man. We'll link all that. And thank you again for coming on, man. This was so fun. And we'll make sure that people find you if they get out to Indy, or find you on TikTok now. All right.
That's right. If you can't find us on TikTok, it's John's fault. You heard him say it.
All right, bro.
Thanks for the shout out, man. Appreciate it. Thanks
all right.
Hey, you millennial millionaire. Are you looking for help getting to the next level in real estate? Are you looking for accountability and strategy to achieve your goals? If so, Jonathan is now taking on one-on-one students and opening a few spots in his private mastermind. It's affordable and welcome to everyone. If you had any questions or think you may need a boost, send Jonathan a message on Facebook or email at johnjfarber@outlook.com.